Hey, everybody, it's Dr. Kevin McGovern, and it is another episode of the Prove It Live podcast, episode 84, in case we have any good 84s. Today's episode is going to be on hacks that we can do in the off season to keep us in game ready shape, form, skill level in the off season, especially here in New England where it snows 6 months out of the year. So without further ado, I'll turn you over to my very handsome co-host, Mr. Mike Frary. Mike, with his
Thank
new
you.
digs. How we doing?
Doing fantastic, thanks. I was messing around with the light a little bit pre-show, so I was like, it was brighter in here, but I looked like Two-Face from Batman. I had like one half of my face was completely in the shadow. So
Hold on.
Yeah, that's a work in progress, but we'll get there. We'll get there. I'm always striving to bring the best light to you. Yeah, no, excited about the show today. I am Mike Frary from the Farm Baseball Performance Institute, alongside the aforementioned Dr. Kevin McGovern from Perfect Motion Sports Therapy, and our fabulous new producer, Benjamin Bills. Talking about hacks, I love this idea because, Kevin, and we get this a lot. We get kids that ask us like, hey, so we're training, say 3 days a week. What should I be doing when I'm not training with you? And to the kids that don't ask, we want to tell them, hey, if you really want to see a marked improvement, it's always about the stuff you're doing when the coaches are not watching, right? What are you doing on your own? And are you taking ownership of your own personal skill development in your sport, specifically for us, for baseball? But before we go any further, I'd like to introduce Benjamin Bills and take it away, Ben. Got anything fabulous to say?
Well, we're talking about jersey numbers. I think the best wide receiver of all time wore 84.
Ben Watson.
We're talking about Randy Moss. There you go.
Randy Moss. Was he 84 with Minnesota?
Randy Moss, yes, sir.
He was 81 with the Patriots. That's really what matters. I don't think anyone's going to remember the 84. But phenomenal.
Hey, best receiver in history, in my opinion, followed by none other than Calvin Johnson's short-lived career.
Well, anyway.
Hey, I wasn't around for the Jerry Rice stuff.
Oh, right, yeah.
Wasn't around.
Yeah, but you were around for like Babe Ruth. You still know that he was like,
right,
arguably the greatest.
Hocus pocus.
And a segue to our last show, when I was searching for the 82 for the San Francisco 49ers, that was John Taylor. If you remember that. John Taylor was also a good wide receiver.
Well, 84, before you go any further, Mr. Benjamin Watson, tight end for the New England Patriots, pre-Rob Gronkowski. Long forgotten about because Gronkowski was so great, but he was a phenomenal tight end for the New England Patriots during the early part of their run.
Nice.
Yeah.
There you go.
So, yeah, the word hack, I mean, that seems to be, we can talk about that, right? Hack, we would think like 20 years ago was some sort of like, joke, but that seems to be a word that's like kind of changes meaning to me, like shortcut now. So, yeah, Mike, so if we had, so a lot of kids, which is good. I think it's good. They're playing multiple sports, but some people are just concentrating on baseball. I mean, you've got a player or two that's at an all baseball school now. So, there's certainly specialization, but as kids, you and I, we played everything from stickball, the kickball, the basketball, invented games, did things differently. Who knows when it's all said and done, what was the right way, what was the wrong way. But the one thing that we can never get away with here in New England is the bleeping weather, which is why you're essentially in business, because you have an indoor facility. You're not outside in Florida where you can be outside, 350 days a year. So if somebody had, maybe we can break this up, Mike. If someone had a day, maybe someone had an hour, maybe someone had 15 to 20 minutes, what would you say are the important things that they have to do? And we can just do, if you want to do pitching, hitting, or just in general, to stay game ready, meaning that we say, hey, you're going to play tomorrow and fly to, Arizona for a tryout or a look for a college, what are they ready to go and what should they be doing?
So good question. There's a lot of ways.
It took a long time for me to get it out.
You did, but you got there. I'm proud of you.
All right, thanks, man.
There's a lot of answers to that depending on what the ultimate goal is, right? So if you're talking about going to a college and you're going to some showcase in December, then you want to make sure that you see some obviously overhand pitching. So it's probably been a couple months at a minimum since your fall season. So but that's more of the exception, not the rule in terms of our situations. What I always think is that this way, success is built in the off season. Success is built before the season starts, right? You're going to develop your swing. You're going to develop your strength, all of that before the season starts. When you get to the season, you just want to go into the game and be an athlete and react, right? And this is a game, talking about diamond sports. It's all reaction. It's reaction when you're hitting. It's reaction when you're fielding. So I'll start by saying the number one thing that we see all the time, and we've mentioned it before, but it's posture, right? Practice posture, practice the things that you can control as a hitter. For instance, if we're talking about hitting, what's that mean? Okay, well, until the pitch is on the way, I'm in total control. I can move my body however I want. I can get into whatever position I want. This is all within my control. I'm still in a proactive state, not reactive yet. And what we see a lot, Kevin, is kids that they wait a little bit too long to start their load phase. It becomes a reactionary thing. And while they may start in a good stance, right? Their posture is good. Their hips are back, their butt's down. They've got the little bend in the lower part of their spine, the lordosis. Their scaps are down and retracted. But then they step, and when they land right before they're about to swing, and they lose all of that. So I would say the number one hack, and you could just do this for 15 minutes a day, is practice going from your stance to your load position and maintaining that posture. Because as you know, Kevin, and Ben, you know this too, it doesn't matter what you look like in the stance. We teach it in the stance so kids can feel it early, right? But the whole goal is to get into an athletic position once the foot's down, hips back, butt down. We'll have a video that we can show what that looks like a little bit later from one Mookie Betts. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of him. He does a phenomenal job of it. So that's one hack that I would say in terms of hitting that I do emphasize that our kids do at home for like 15 minutes. And then the second one's a lot shorter. The second one is just practicing turning to the ball without your hands, right? Just literally turning and letting your shoulder and your hands come along and take the ride with your hip. And then you could do that by taking a bat and, use the corner of your bed, something soft. So, your parents don't want to murder you. If you break anything, you won't break anything, just something soft in the corner of bed, and practice going to contact. And if you're honest about it, right? And if you go to contact here, and now if I back my hips up and I'll see where my hands are, okay, they haven't moved. I can get like this, which still looks like a good contact position, unwind my hips, and I see, my hands have dropped. So those are two things just right off the top. And I've got more, but I know you got some too, Kevin. So I want to make sure you get yours in there.
Oh, yeah. Well, those are good. So let's follow up with this, Mike. Is there anything that would be, kids are playing, winter, we got soccer, we've got football. I'm not sure if swimming is what, that's
not
would be
a sport.
We know, but is there any sport or that you have seen that really decreases someone's game readiness? Like, is there a sport that, oh man, this is like everything that you're doing the opposite of what I would teach, or opposite movements? Is there anything you got?
Yes. Now it's a loaded question, Kevin, because
I like to load them up, baby.
It's not really a sport, but there is a game that people will play that will really, really mess their swing up. And that is golf. Golfers
which
and
is
hitters.
In New England here, played in the fall, at least in Massachusetts. I know other states spring, but a lot of it's fall.
Yep. So the season's in the fall, but kids that are golfing, if they're on their golf team in the fall, they're going to be practicing all spring and summer out in the course. And I can tell you, without exception that I know of, I'm sure there are exceptions, but I have never seen one. Almost without exception, if you're golfing, right, fairly consistently while you're training or playing baseball, you will never maximize your baseball swing. And I would assume you're never going to maximize your golf swing either. We've had players who have done both, and neither swing gets to where it needs to be. And because although there are a lot of similarities, the differences are massive. And, Ben, you've seen it, right? I mean, you can see oftentimes, oh, wow, this kid plays golf. You can tell just by his swing, right? So
what are some of the, I'm a parent, what are the glaring differences?
Sure.
A lot of people are going to say, well, all right, the grip is different, but it looks it's a lot the same. You know what I mean?
Yep. There's a lot the same. So number one, I would say that, golfers, you never see them in what we would call a load position and as a hitter, right? The feet are never going to be that wide. The butt back may not be as drastic. The more important thing though, is a little bit of a linear shift from the hips in golf from back to front. And then the biggest one is the hand drop. You see this and you see this. And the hands start to come right down. And so that's the biggest thing. So golfers that come in to hit, They all want to make contact. They start their swing with their hands way down by their waist. And of course, you're not going to have much success if that's where you're starting your swing from, no matter who you're facing.
It's a good point. I like that. That. So for me, I've talked about really, trying to, what I kind of do is really start with the fundamentals of movement, right? That, because I've got to treat a huge population of people from, your athlete to granny, right?
A swath, you might say.
Yes, right. And, what I have found out through many years of trial and error is that really everybody has the same beginning sequence of movements. The three of us, LeBron James, Mookie Betts, Aaron Judge, whatever it is, right? We've that movement doesn't change. Now, obviously, when you're an athlete, you can do that movement and the transitions and the stops much faster, right? Much with better duplication or whatever it is. But in the day, we have to go like a formula of math: A to B to C to D to get an equation. What I have seen is that kids are missing. They've got some A, maybe some B, a lot of C. They just don't have all of the movements down, right? So, for me, the three movements, and I'll dump the video into our YouTube channel, but it's on my YouTube, so the three moves to stay healthy, right? It's essentially what you have to master. And they may sound silly when we're going to talk about them. One is squatting. I've talked about that a million times. The other is, scapular depression, to be able to pull our shoulder blades down. And the third, I always say, is walking, right? Truly walking. And I use the analogy, as you've heard me, of, the old joke of a guy with, no arms and no legs at your doorstep. We all know him as Matt, right? But I use that because to get people to understand that everything comes from the spine, right? So if we had no arms and no legs, how would we move them, right? And we'd move them from some movement that starts at our spine. So I say to walk, it's whether I'm walking forward, back, it starts at my belly button, right? So for me, if you could do scapular depression exercises, more importantly, I'm going to pop this up on our screen here in a sec, what I call scapular geometry for those math people at home, and then squatting, and then some sort of rotational movement, which every sport has to do with rotation of turning at the core, whether it's tennis, whether it's, we talked about golf, football, everything has to do with some degree of rotation, right? I mean, that's just the way it is. So I'm going to share our screen here and show this. I actually now have enough viewers that I actually have ads on my thing here, which I don't really like, but let's see here. Can we see this now? No, wrong one. Sorry.
Mm-hmm. No, we can see a screen, but yeah.
Yeah, hold on. We got the wrong. Okay. So this is what I would call, scapular geometry here, where we have this gal using our torso as essentially one of the axes, and then our arms as the other angle. So this angle between her arms and her torso is essentially 0. And she's just doing a scapular depression, and she's doing a basic arm raise, and she's, turning her hands. You'll see her hands will turn from palms up to thumbs down, and it keeps going along the way. Well, we don't want to see that guy. So that's up there, scapular geometry. It's really working on the muscles of the shoulder blade, which again we need for every sport, whatever we're doing. So what I try to do as far as hacks is not, everyone asks, I'm sure, Mike, you get the same thing. I'm sure Ben has been to things. Do you do baseball specific training? Do you do football specific training? Well, yeah, because we have to squat, rotate, and scapular depress with absolutely every sport, right? So I laugh. Yes, I do hockey specific training. Yeah, because every sport is those components. And I think that with what's going on in today's world, we've kind of gotten away from the basic meat and potatoes of working out and got into these, we've talked about, penthouse type exercises, which really don't contribute to making someone an athlete and kind of almost take away. So again, if you can master, spinal rotation, scapular depression, and squatting, that's going to keep you in game ready shape, no matter what sport it is.
Yes.
And even sports that Mike doesn't consider sports, which would be most sports.
Most sports, that's not stick and ball. Hey,
Right.
I like what you said.
No, that's not true. Hockey's a sport.
Hey, to go along with that, this isn't really a hack, but it's just something that everyone should do. And I think it's extremely important. I mean, it's playoff baseball time. Like, watch some baseball, that's something you can do to stay ready, stay mentally involved in the game. Like, watch some baseball. Or if you're at school and you're in a study hall and you have an hour and you're caught up on all your work, read a book about baseball. You got success stories, like learning the mental side of baseball, learning, what Derek Jeter did to stay successful or what these people did. It doesn't even need to be a baseball. I read a Nick Foles book when he won the Super Bowl about his upbringing, stuff like that. It keeps your mind sharp and it keeps you mentally involved in the game.
That's a great. Oh, sorry, Mike. That's a great point. We've had a mental skills guy on here before. A great, very high rated show. I suggest you look back. I forget what episode it was, but yeah, I mean, I always call your brain the hard drive, right? We're not doing anything without that, and that is the most important muscle.
Yeah,
and that needs to be trained too. And there's exercise you can go on YouTube and do. Like, even there's visual exercises, training your vision, doing things that would be great for all sports, not just essentially baseball specific.
If your movements are perfect, but you're mentally taking yourself out of the game, it's like it's 50-50. My movements are perfect, but I'm calling myself a loser before the game even starts. You're probably going to lose.
Well, it's sort of the holy trinity of baseball development in my mind, right? So this, Kevin, right? I mean, what was it, 20-ish years less? It was less than 20. It was probably 12, 13 years ago. Strength training wasn't even really a well-known component of baseball development, right? So that was the sex. So number one is learning the skills, the fundamentals. Number two is strength. And number three, which we do at the farm, we do at the Minutemen, and I know it's not that big yet. It is with some larger programs, but is the mental part of the game. And I would recommend, Ben said, reading a book, and there's a great book by Ken Ravizza, who's sort of the godfather of the mental game of baseball, and it's called Heads Up Baseball, and it applies to all sports. And it's really about, he talks about being in a red, yellow, or green state mentally, and to constantly trying to be living in that green state as often as you can. So huge part.
If you're a young kid and you can't read, there's audiobooks that are
audiobooks.
Thing. Yeah.
Well, even I think you should have, and I've talked with people about a system, right? Businesses, everybody has a system, right? You go into McDonald's, the fries are on the left. Your body needs a system. What I mean by that is, if for those who've been on an airplane or whatever, there's always a checklist, right? We're going to sit here, we're going to check. So one of the things that you could easily do that doesn't cost any money is build yourself a checklist for your position, for your skill. Because, to know a skill, Mike, if you teach me, how to hit, for me to truly know it, I've got to be able to teach somebody else, right? Mm-hmm. Then I own it, right? Then, like you said, then you can teach me, I can turn around and teach Ben can turn around and teach someone else. That is owning it. And God, we've got these things here that, we never had as kids, like these things, right?
Yep.
Instead of sitting there on TikTok, right? You could be sitting there, okay, step one, I just look at, pitching is my repertoire, stand tall, shoulder blades down, breathe. Step two, boom. Step three, have your own checklist. So, Ben, you can teach something about pitching. I can teach something about pitching to said child. But in order to own it, they've got to take that information and not just memorize it, but be able to use it and own it. So they have to make their own checklist. And I've done exercises with this. Okay, especially when I'm teaching people to pitch. Like, look, I may think this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is what it is, but you might be like, this is really, for me, it's 4 steps or 6 steps. That when they truly own what to do, they can then take the information and make it their own and still be able to duplicate what you're trying to teach them. And that costs nothing. That's just really, and I consider that mental skills. That's the control over your body.
Training is a skill, just like anything else. Training is a skill. You have to learn how to do it. You have to discipline yourself to do it. We talked about a pre-show, can you teach work ethic, right? And I think you can. We'll put it this way. I think you can learn it. I don't know if it's something that you can teach, but it's definitely something that you can learn to develop as a human. And I'll tell you this, there may be exceptions out there, but I personally have never, and I've been doing this a long time and trained, thousands of kids at this point. I've never seen somebody who just doesn't like to train and doesn't like to work on their skill be great baseball players. All the ones that I've seen that have become great, they love taking part in training. It doesn't mean you have to do it 7 days a week or even 5 days a week, but they love the training. They like to focus, they like to learn, and so there's so many things. Kevin pointed out, the phone, there was an app I was looking for, but I think I actually took it off my phone. I had so many things on there, but there's an app on there where you can just work on pitch recognition. Does it mimic in-game perfectly? No, but it helps, and again, instead of being on Instagram or on TikTok, you jump on that, you give it a few minutes, and there's AI technology out there. There's so many things to do, but I think when it comes down to, like, there are hacks, there are certain things I think that are more important to work on. But at the end of the day, if you're working on something, you're mentally engaged, you're thinking about the sport, and you're improving something. And we always say, if you can leave a training session, and even if you got 1% better, that's a win.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of younger kids need to know, that where they are right now isn't going to be where they are in the future, which kind of ties into that work ethic. Is like, growing up, I had kids that were way better than me that everyone thought, D1 for these kids. And you fall in love with the training, and you end up, not all the time does it work out that you end up better than those kids, but it's not where you start, it's where you finish. It's like,
yep,
you fall in love with the training and it rewards you, so like what we used to say, hard work beats talent, even when talent doesn't work hard, or something like that. So
it's like,
it kind of falls in that category. And we deal with a lot of younger kids too, and it's like incorporating the idea that you young kids have so much time to like take off and run with this information. Don't get so frustrated with yourself right now.
That's a great point, especially for our sport, right? Because baseball is a skill-driven sport. It's a learned dynamic, right? And so we talked about all the time how you have Jose Altuve, at 3'8", whatever he is, having success, and you have guys like Aaron Judge at 6'7" and CC Bathy at 6'10". You have everything in between, and you can learn how to be really good at it. And especially, I would say, in a diamond sport, baseball, softball, hard work would be talent, especially when talent refuses to work hard, like Ben said, and that's not always the case. In some sports, if you're a boxer or Muay Thai fighter or something, and you could train all you want, but you face somebody who's got 5 inches of reach on you and is faster than you, you're gonna have a hard time. You're gonna have time. That God-given talent that person has is gonna be something you really got to deal with, and you can overcome that a lot more easily in diamond sports. So just keep working.
Good point.
Yeah.
So, if you're a parent, you're a player, if you have questions about this, please email the show at info@proveitlive.com. If we don't have the answer, we will certainly go and find the answer to help you out. So,
I can tell you. Oh, sorry, Kevin. I was going to say, you can. We do have, Kevin. You and I have made videos on some of the things that we talked about. Working on the posture, getting into that squat position, what it should look like, where you should feel it, that sort of thing. So that is available, and maybe we can even repost it here in the comments or something.
Yes,
but it should be on our YouTube channel.
Absolutely. Well.
Right.
Kind of went a little different order this week, but we do have our top of the order, which now maybe is middle of the order. We've got some
heart of the order.
We've got some playoff caliber baseball going on, and Mike, you and I as handicappers, we're out.
Yeah.
I picked the Cardinals to win, and you picked the Mets, and man, we got shellacked, and we're out.
I almost went with my Doc Gooden jersey today for that reason. In fact, I had the royal blue hat, and I was like, I'll wear the Mets jersey, in memoriam, and own my bad call. But, you can't be right all the time. And look, that's what I love about playoff baseball and playoffs in general, playoff hockey, football, is that, it's unpredictable. It's not always easy. I mean, how many times, I think more times than not, and I'm doing this blind, I did not look this up, but just on my memory, the teams with the winningest record during the regular season don't often end up winning the World Series. And so, hey, you win some, you lose some, but who's your pick now?
Oh man, after it's such a great. I mean, in the American League, the Yankees, Houston. Obviously that game the other night. I mean, to me, that's a fireable offense, right? I'm not making $5 million as a manager, but if you're going to bring a left-handed pitcher in to face a lefty, throwing 2 fastballs in a row, to me, mate, what are you doing? Right? Shouldn't those pitches have been a breaking ball? Because that's why you have a lefty, because it moves away from the lefty. To put 2 pitches dead in the middle at 97, the fastball's a fastball, and he hit it 9,000 feet. And I wish he would have pimped it more, went by Scott Service and was like, are you an idiot? Like, so I still think Houston, as much as I hate them for everything that they have done for the bad of baseball, and the Dodgers those two seem to be the 2 best, and I hate both of them.
Hey, I just want Manny to win 1 World Series in his career.
Machado? Yeah, I like the Padres. I always like the uniforms.
I like the Padres. Josh Hader looks like he's back in peak form. Looks good. But I'm also, being from Pennsylvania, I'm not a Phillies fan, but I'd like to see the Phillies make it back.
Tug McGraw's not coming through that door. But, yeah, I mean, the one thing is the games have been exciting, right? That they have been good. Mike, what do you think? What do you got left?
I don't know. I kind of like the Padres pick. It's hard. They look good. I mean, I admittedly didn't watch them a lot during the regular season, but just watching the playoffs, I mean, they're just a solid all the way through. That they're a solid team. I do not necessarily want to see Manny Machado win a World Series. I'm not a big Machado fan, but okay, I'd take it to see the Padres.
Like you said, we're not always right. That's fine.
Right? Yeah, exactly, exactly. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the Dodgers and the Astros, like, it's just enough with them. Enough. It's every year. Like.
I know
they're an easy pick, I mean, but I don't know. I could never bring myself to pick one of those 2 teams. And by the way, I don't think they're going to. I don't think Houston, especially the Dodgers, may get to the World Series. But yeah, I'd love to see the Padres get there.
Yeah, I'd like to see the Padres. That'd be cool.
Yeah. I like their uniforms. I do. I gotta tell you, I do like the Padres.
The one thing I don't like.
Really? Yeah. I always
they look like UPS drivers.
They do look like UPS drivers. Yeah.
Jackson Profar is delivering your mail.
Yeah, that's true.
But we'll see. It's too early. There's only 1 and 2 games in. So, but we do have.
Hey, I saw something crazy yesterday, though.
What did you say?
That if it's either the Mets, let me see, the Mets, the Braves, or the Mariners, win the World Series, Robinson Cano wins a ring. He's played on all three of those clubs this year. I think it was the Braves, right?
It's definitely 3 teams. I could find
that is fantastic.
Yeah, so his likelihood of winning a ring is higher than everyone else's, and he's not even playing anymore.
Let's see.
Kind of like when
it's the Braves.
Yeah.
The Mets who are out and the Padres. So he's got just
there you go. Just
down to 2 left.
That was remember the Yankees had Ramiro Mendoza? He won 5 championships with the Yankees and then snuck one in because he was part of 2004 with the Red Sox.
Yeah.
And won 6 rings. That's crazy.
All right. So
what do we got, Michael?
All right. So I'd like to go to the video. So I do want to show, I think we have a good example of something that you and I talk about, Kevin, which is the postural, alignment and the first movement. And once you go from a load position, the first movement to contact, right? What part of your body actually swings the bat? And so you should have a video there of one Mookie Betts. If I'm not mistaken.
Yes, let me do that here for 1 sec. All right, Mike, let me pull up Mr. Betts. Now, is this the same Mr. Betts who used to play in the Red Sox organization? Is that? Oh, yes, here he is.
Well, actually, as evidenced by the video, he's in a Boston Red Sox uniform. Yes.
So what do you want me to highlight here?
You can just let it play because it's going to play in a loop. And so what we were talking about earlier is getting to the position. You can see right before Mookie starts his swing, right there. His hips are back, his butt's back, his knees are bent, but they're not forward of his feet. They're staying over the center of his feet. He's got great posture right there. That's strong postures. His posterior chain is engaged. And the second thing, oops, we lost it.
Well, it goes.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And the second thing, Kevin, is what you call walk, right? So he's walking. That's what he's doing to start his swing. Is he's just turning his hips. You can see his hips, his belly button, and the belt buckle turning. You can see the shoulders and the hands and the bat all come after the hips, which is how you're.
So no flipping. Yeah, if you slow, I mean, you can just see his first. I mean, you can just
His posture's
see
great.
the posture's great, and that belt buckle again. You see it turning, right? I mean, that's, I hate to use the definition, but there's Matt, right? I mean, his arms and legs and hands are moving because of the spine. Because
the traveling, yes.
Yeah, I mean, if we had an injury at the spine, we know we're right about this, because if there's an injury at the spine, the arms and legs don't move very well. That's just something I've come up with in the last 28 years of practice. Yep. So for those who say it starts at the hands, it doesn't.
No. Nope. And if you were to pause his swing, Kevin, right, at contact, and then, if you were to unwind, you'll see his hands really haven't moved. Outside of the top hands, obviously going to turn over. His form's going to slot a little bit into his side. That's it, because he's going to be able to unwind. He's going to come right back to here, and then boom, and that's where his load position was.
There has, I guess, as we say, often imitated, never duplicated. I've been preaching, proximal to distal, and just for those who actually own the domain name proximal to distal, but others have been using that, I've noticed. But anyway, essentially, recently, that is how the body moves, right? I mean, it has to move from spinal cord out, and the last thing that has to move is the arms. And when we talk about hip to shoulder separation, we need to change that to extremity last, because the longer that we can not fire the arms, whether it's in the golf swing, whether we're pitching, hitting, tennis, the more power we're going to have, because as that trunk finishes, all that energy is built up. And that's a scientific principle called potential energy. The arms have all this energy ready to go. And it's just boom, it's just an explosion.
Right. And a great example of that too, as you can imagine, look at a basketball shot. Now, someone takes a shot from the free throw line. They might barely, kind of bring their hips back, barely let their knees bend. And it's more just the force of the arm. And they'll watch what happens when they take a shot from half court. What changes? What's the difference? And the difference is they get way down into a squat, and then they lunge up from their lower half and finish the ball with their hands, right? So the force, the power of that shot, the distance is coming from the legs, all the power. The hands are the steering wheel, right? They're the more like the fine tuning.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the same with the swing. Exact same with the swing. And the same with most swings, tennis, whatever.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
All right. Was there another of our, we are actually in our kind of, that would be a why you would do that.
That's why you would do that.
Absolutely.
What you would do. There was one other one on there. Now, again, I'll say the exact same thing I said to Kevin. I said, look, I have this other video we can show, but it's Teacher Man. And, it's like, I know we're beating that horse.
Yeah, but we like that horse.
He's the gift that keeps giving, and what was so amazing about this, Kevin, was what he said about this video. So he's showing this move, which you can pull up in a minute. And he says,
is that the one with the actual Teacher Man in the video?
This is Teacher Man. Yep. And so what you folks, what everyone's about to see here is the secret to Aaron Judge's success.
The Aaron Judge.
Yep.
Oh, this is like,
there's nothing on the screen. There we go.
This is like the guy using the rotational thing that I have. Now, is he hitting righty or lefty, Mike, in this? He's hitting lefty, I guess?
He's hitting lefty, yeah. I think he is a lefty.
So he's got this apparati, for those watching at home, behind his back, and it's a curved, it's a thing of PVC pipe, and he's just turning his trunk. But when he does that, he's on some angle that he'll never hit the ball.
Right.
Just for people watching at home, if you're taking hitting advice from a guy wearing jeans, don't pay.
Yeah. Yeah. And like the orthopedic Converse, New Balance.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you guys why you're both wrong, because what you just witnessed was the secret. Okay. The secret to Aaron Judge's success. Okay.
Or the hack. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. So, and he says that if you just do this, that you too can hit 62 home runs. Now, he doesn't say where. You could be a local football league. He says your size and ability level has nothing to do with it.
Nothing to do. I'm going to get that back up. The other, so at the end, as I'm going to pull this up again, he did something that's impossible. So he's got this yellow PVC pipe, and he says, you turn and then you flip your hands. Okay. So going back to the principles of movement, the merry-go-round system, meaning we have to have a stable pillar to rotate around. Even if I'm standing and raising my arms over my head, my trunk and body is the stable pillar as my arm rotates around. So what he's trying to say is, I'm going to swing, okay? And then as my arms rotate around my swing, but now once he breaks that kinetic chain and says I've got to flip my wrist, the only way to do that is to stop the trunk from rotating, because the trunk now has to be the stable pillar. That's as we wrote now, because now we have a joint working in another plane of movement. So what he's showing there with the flip the wrist is kinesiologically impossible, unless the swing looks like this. He literally does stop it to be able to swing, but to have fluidity, it's impossible. Impossible what he's saying to do. And we know that. It's just,
we know that he's got way too much he's got tilt. His body's not tilted symmetrically. It's tilted like this. He's bending at the waist. His back knee's going forward. He's barely on his front foot. I mean, all the things that you would not want to do, he does and claims it's the way to do it. And so that's why he is the gift.
And keeps on giving. And, a few shows ago, we showed from the LinkedIn, there was a Kinetrax that showed
Aaron Judge.
An AI diagram. And the only thing that moved on Aaron Judge was his hips the entire time as his body came through, and right at contact, he finished with his arms. It's, as he would say,
that's
video doesn't lie. Teacherman likes to say that. So yes, video does not lie.
He's right.
So
and if you can't see it, you're just a dummy.
I'm just a dummy.
No, that's what he says. Yeah.
So now, I got to show a picture that's disturbing.
Yeah.
It should be disturbing for everyone to see. So, I think his name is Ben. We look up King's first name for the Yankees. The reason why I went to school with like 5 Kings, Matt, Jason, and none of them. That's not his first name. But I'm terrible at names. But I know that this is a local college-educated kid, because he went to Boston College and he was having a really kind of special year for the Yankees, and he left the game. Michael King. He left the game with the only time I remember someone breaking their elbow or their arm. Mike, you and I you might have even been too young for this.
I remember Dave Dravecki.
Remember Dave Dravecki actually ended up having like cancer. And so this is a picture of Michael King, where essentially he's facing forward with his belt buckle in his chest, but his arm is so far behind him, and his forearm is parallel to the ground.
Yeah.
If you look at this picture and tell me that this is somehow healthy mechanics, you need to be imprisoned.
Yep. And most would tell you, oh, that's great. That's great external rotation.
You need to be in prison. So what happened with Mr. King is he fractured he's along with 7 other Yankees who've had catastrophic elbow injuries that are out this year alone. Somehow they're saying that he doesn't need Tommy John surgery, that he just so a pitch fractured. And just think about that. Fractured his elbow. No one hit him with a bat. He threw a pitch and he broke his elbow. And you look at this mechanic, and of course, yes. Why? I mean, just looking, you can't see the lower half of his body, but his leg is anchored to the mound, which people teach. So again, he's breaking, movement laws where as he's moving or walking, his leg is not coming forward; it's anchoring back, and that's just going to cause torque and torsion that the body doesn't need. And there's the result of that. Now, had he been taught to do that same thing, but just offload his arm and rotate around his front leg, that picture looks a lot different. You're
going to like this one. When Aaron Boone was asked in an interview about Michael King's fractured elbow, his response was, "It's part of baseball."
And sadly, it is.
It is. He's correct. I mean, but just think of that. Now, there's Michael King with the most valued franchise in the history of sports. I mean, I don't know what the Yankees would sell for today, but, top of the line, whatever they need. My concern, our concern is the dad or the kid who's watching that on YouTube that's, trying to throw the ball or the rock or whatever it is against the wall in his home and gets hurt and stops playing baseball. I mean, that's, and looking at that picture, I think I have one similar to that a few years ago when I saw Chris Sale. I'm like, well, he's going to, as Mike knows, I usually kind of pick someone every year. Unfortunately, it's like the morbid year to blow out their arm. It's something's got to get done. You cannot no one can look at that picture and say that looks good. If you look at that and say that picture looks good, you need to lose your license. You need whatever needs to happen, but you need to get out of teaching sports. I know I'm passionate about this because it is an epidemic, pandemic, whatever. And now we're talking about what we saw in video last week. And now we've got little girls. Okay. I've got 2 girls. Mike, you've got a girl. We've got girls now getting Tommy John surgery. That is obscene. Obscene.
Yeah. And I think the reason is too, is like, it depends on, like you're saying, if you think that looks good, and you will have people that say that does look good, not from a position, of course, of health, but because they think, oh, well, the external rotation, always translates or almost always translates to velocity, right? And so velocities. I do have to make one correction on the podcast, though. The New York Yankees are not the highest valued franchise.
Oh, are you gonna give me a soccer team? Is that what it is? Like
Dallas Cowboys.
I was gonna say the Cowboys.
Do you think the Cowboys would be more than
they are? Yeah.
Yeah.
And because they own all the rights to all their stuff, the NFL owns none of it. They're exclusive like that. Yep.
Okay.
So that guy over there, the crazy guy with the plastic face, he does know what he's doing.
Right.
Gotta hand it to him.
Right.
Gotta hand it to him.
All right. Well, hey, thank you for listening to our podcast. Again, if you need to get in touch with us, please email the show at info@proveitlive.com. Please subscribe and like our YouTube channel. And if you ever want to hear information about a certain topic, please contact us. We will do whatever we can to get you content or answers to your content. Now, I will already tell you that we already have a guest lined up for next week. We're going to be talking about what this person described as, I would rather walk on hot coals. Okay. And that is the college recruitment process for the softball player. Okay. So we're going to have a parent on next week who's in the midst of going through this with his extremely high GPA daughter, very skilled. And it is, he said, an absolute nightmare. So he'll be giving tips on what to do, more importantly, what not to do. But we will have that segment for you next week. So that's what we got.
All right.
Listening.
Adios.
Patriots are the second highest paid franchise.
Oh, wow.
Oh, boy. All right. With that, we're out of here.